So there is something that's happened in the ADA charts that we have only seen one time before, and that time was all the way back in March of 2020. We obviously all know that ADA went on to do some pretty incredible things, 175x from those prices. Am I saying that's going to happen again? No, not necessarily. But could we in fact see this kind of be a moment where the market actually turns around and begins to take off and we see some insane highs? I want to talk about my projections for ADA with you guys. Have those changed? Have those stayed the same? Do you want to talk about something that Michael Saylor had mentioned as well? Do you also want to cover something that changed in the Bitcoin top indicators? We'll discuss all that and more in this video. So again, if you guys are new or haven't already, show your support for the channel down below. But let's just dive right into this because Michael Saylor said, if people knew what I know, Bitcoin would go to 10 million tomorrow. Now, this could be, again, a nothing, could be something. We obviously know that strategy has now gone from this point where they were, quote unquote, beloved by everyone because obviously they were one of the largest consistent buyers of BTC in the crypto space to now this kind of, well, I don't even want to call it a villain per se, because obviously there's major FUD against strategy and MSTR right now. We know obviously JP Morgan has been pushing back very hard on MSTR, trying to basically take down strategy. We know that a lot of people have been FUDding what strategy is doing, saying that, you know, when we get down to a certain price level below 74K in terms of BTC, that would cause this cascade of liquidations on the strategy side. And again, we all know, we should all know now that that's a big old bunch of nonsense and people aren't falling for the BS anymore. But I think that strategy, obviously, in their accumulation could be a big reason why BTC shows the type of stability that we're seeing now and can continue to be even more stable for the industry as we move into bigger times of adoption. But let's get into ADA here, because ADA had the second monthly Wyckoff spring in its history that took place last month. Now, the last time, again, this took place, we saw ADA do that 175x move. Now, sometimes the market needs to go through a big shakeout event, a big buying event that gives people opportunity that they wouldn't normally see. And that's a lot of what we've seen in this market cycle, is because we haven't seen this big adoption taking place and this rapid market expansion, it's given us opportunities at prices that we probably should not be seeing. And that truly is a blessing, right? Because you don't always get that, especially as we're on the verge of moving into mass adoption, as we're now, you know, having institutional money enter the space, as we're having all of these ETFs launch. I mean, these are big things that are going to change the industry forever, and they will accelerate adoption when adoption does begin. So that's something that people need to know of. Now, in terms of ADA itself, here's the thing. We obviously know the big reason why ADA and others haven't really seen those euphoric pushes in this market cycle. Yes, we've had some fun ones. We've seen ADA do, you know, a 3-4x twice. But the reason we haven't had this typical blow off top is because we haven't had adoption. All right. My projections for this cycle have been based on us getting new adoption in the space, which has obviously been lacking. But here's the thing is I believe that if we do get a traditional round of adoption, if we move from this 6% of the world to 10% of the world in crypto, I think that $7 to $15 ADA I've talked about many times before is still going to be intact. And obviously it hasn't happened here in 2025 like we projected for the reasons that we've discussed. But that doesn't, again, mean that adoption is just going to stop. It doesn't mean it's not coming. It's basically been delayed. And you could look at, again, liquidity. You could look at all these world news events. You could look at the shakeouts in the market. You can blame whatever the hell you want. But we need to remember that, again, this is a long-term game. And we're again, going to get into some times where the crypto market is fun and exciting again. And the things that Cardano is building are a big reason why it's going to be relevant when retail starts to come back to the space. Remember, retail loves ADA. Now, I did want to talk about something else that happened here that people need to be aware of. This is the bull market peak indicators. And what's interesting is that we just saw the trigger of 1 of 30 here. Now, keep in mind, this is not a law per se. This doesn't mean that there's going to be this big cascade of triggers on here. And I want to show you something specifically about this trigger that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But there's a lot of things in here that give us a good insight of how close we are to certain things happening. You guys can see this references Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin long-term holder supply. Some of these are fairly close. But what we actually had trigger was the Bitcoin bubble index. Now, what's very strange about this is the reference point has to be a higher than 80, and it shows 834.83. When we look at this chart, it's actually at a -4. So this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It kind of looks like more of a false trigger than anything. But what's really interesting about this is when we've gotten down into this range, below basically a 0, it's been huge opportunity times in the crypto market. We've now just done this for the second time in this cycle. The last time this was taking place was actually in the late fall of 2024, right before obviously we went on, a sizable, I don't know why I was looking at my light. Right before we saw a sizable expansion in the market. So you get these kind of periods of contraction where people are flocking to stable coins, where they're not really leaving the market, but they're just kind of parking things on the sideline. And that's kind of what we've been in. It's because we've been in a little bit of a fear cycle now. And now we're starting to kick out some of that fear. Well, what happens when the fear is gone? The liquidity rushes back to assets. And we basically saw what we saw back in November of 2024. Now, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen for sure right now or anything like that. And I'm not saying that that means that ADA's going to do a 4x from here. Maybe it does. It seems to want to consistently do that every time the market gets exciting. But one thing I did want to mention to you guys is in terms of liquidity on exchanges, in terms of stable coins, we've actually just seen this again hit a new all-time high. So after that drop, we've started to have a rebound there. And again, you're seeing all this capital just thrust into the market, So you're seeing people actively buy the dip. You're seeing people position capital for the accumulation of assets. So we're seeing the exact things you normally see before you get a big aggressive push in the market. And again, I'm not saying that's going to be this week. I'm not saying it's going to even be this year still. But it seems like we are getting close to a moment where that can in fact take place. Did want to show you guys as well. We're still kind of in that week of exchange inflows in terms of ADA. It's very small right now. It's only about $3.67 million. So this could even, change as we get to the end of the week. And usually when we have weeks like this, you tend to have big weeks following that, the opposite direction, people taking advantage. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I appreciate you as always. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, but have a great day. Catch you guys in the next one. Take care.